If you'd told me 5 years ago that I'd become humanity's voice to the stars, I'd have laughed and ordered another drink. Back then, I was a washed-up ex-linguist working for an NGO that barely paid rent. I'd spent my 20s in war zones trying to broker peace deals with rebels who didn't know what peace tasted like. And by my 30s, I was tired of broken promises, of polished lies, and especially of speeches that meant nothing. But then the stars opened. It started with the Kestrali ships. They didn't come screaming through the sky in fire and thunder like in the old sci-fi flicks. No. They appeared above Earth in a geometric formation so precise it baffled physicists. Dozens of diamond-shaped vessels hovered at high altitude, broadcasting nothing, answering nothing. Government scrambled jets. Missiles were prepped. Fingerprints hovered over red buttons. And then, just as quietly, the ships released the invitation. It wasn't a message broadcast over radio or light. It was direct, personal, beamed straight into the minds of every human on Earth simultaneously. For 33 seconds, we all saw the same thing, a rotating polyhedron of impossible angles, flickering between colors we didn't have names for, accompanied by a whisper in a voice that felt both alien and achingly familiar. Your kind is burned brightly. You stand on the edge of flame or flower. One voice may speak. Choose. And then they were gone. 33 seconds was all it took to flip Earth upside down. The United Nations fell into chaos. Religious groups called it divine judgment. Conspiracy theorists went feral. For once, the cynics were right. This wasn't a hoax. The Kestrali were real, and so was the test. The message was clear. Only one human would be allowed to speak on behalf of Earth at the Convocation of Concord, the final diplomatic forum of an ancient interstellar collective. After that, no new species would be admitted. We were the last on the list, and the council was split on whether we deserved to exist. That's where I came in. I wasn't supposed to be chosen. The short list had the obvious picks: heads of state, Nobel laureates, an AI theologian from Shanghai, even a Martian-born polymath. I was a ghost in the system, thrown into the mix as a joke by some ex-colleague trying to prove a point. But something about my file caught their attention. Maybe it was my language work with tribal groups in the Congo. Maybe it was my stint brokering ceasefires in Kurdistan. Maybe it was the classified operations I'd led during the Damascus evacuation. Or maybe they just liked the fact I'd failed and gotten back up more times than anyone else on that list. Whatever the reason, I got the call at 2:14 a.m. on the third day of selection week. The message was simple: pack for deep space. You've been chosen. Departure in 6 hours. The rest is a blur. I remember the ride to the orbital launch tower in Kazakhstan, a convoy of black UN shuttles slicing through the snowy steppe. I remember the guards, not soldiers, not anymore. They looked at me like I was already a relic. I remember staring up at the vertical spine of the diplomatic transport, Axiom Dawn, thinking, what the hell am I doing here? But mostly, I remember the silence. No press, no public address, no teary goodbyes. Just the quiet hum of systems coming online, and the cold metal click of my harness locking in as the engines began their countdown. Now I'm here. I'm floating in a padded acceleration pod, somewhere between Earth and a moon-sized diplomatic station called Oryx Primaris, located in the neutral sector of the Carati Expanse. It's not on any star map we've seen, probably because the Concorde doesn't want us to see it. The ship hums like a distant thundercloud. Axiom Dawn is fully automated. No crew, no distractions. Just me, 2 weeks of interstellar travel, and a lot of time to think about the weight on my shoulders. I tap the interface panel. A projection unfolds before me, my briefing, written in sterile UN white font. Subject: Convocation Protocol, Final Admittance Hearing. Objective: Representation of Humanity. Duration: 5 days. Rotational Standard. Conditions: Peaceful conduct required. No weapons. No sub-AI augmentation. Outcome: inclusion or termination. Termination. That's not just diplomatic failure. That's sterilization. Extinction. They don't trust us. Not even a little. They've watched us from afar, seen the mushroom clouds, the genocides, the burning forests and rising seas. They've seen the best of us, too. Voyager, the peace accords, the child who coded their first AI translator in a refugee tent. But the council isn't sentimental. They judge by patterns. And our pattern is violence followed by apology. So why choose me? I stare at my reflection in the glass panel, unshaven, dark circles under my eyes, an old scar slicing across my left cheek from a mortar fragment in Aleppo. Not exactly the face of diplomacy. Maybe that's the point. Maybe they need to see the scars. The moment I exit hyperspace, I feel it, like a second heartbeat in the back of my skull. The ship doesn't slow. It stops. One moment we're moving at relativistic speed through folded space. The next, we're motionless in orbit around a planet that shouldn't exist. Or Ex Primaris. It glows like obsidian pearl, orbiting a blue-white gas giant. The entire surface is latticework, architecture grown rather than built, like coral reefs of crystal and metal. Giant constructs spiral outward like frozen starbursts. Ships from every corner of the galaxy drift in perfect formation. No docking ports, no thruster plumes. They belong here. And then I see them, the Council, not the individuals, the presence. A psychic pressure builds, subtle but undeniable, like a choir inhaling before the first note. The docking cradle receives axiom dawn without contact. I float into the disembarkation chamber, where gravity slowly asserts itself. A doorway opens, no visible mechanism, just a shift in the material, like liquid folding inward. A figure waits for me on the other side. It is not human. The being is 7 feet tall, humanoid in silhouette, but covered in shifting threads of bioluminescent silk. Its face is mask-like, emotionless, with 6 small eyes that blink asynchronously. When it speaks, I don't hear words. I feel impressions. You are the voice of fire. I swallow. Call me Rian. Rian Cade. Earthborn. Scarred soul. Yes, you are known. Its head tilts, like a curious owl. You have 5 cycles. 1 vote must be earned. Welcome to Concord. Speak wisely. And with that, it turns and glides away, its threads leaving faint motes of light in the air. No time to unpack. No time to prepare. I'm escorted, wordlessly, through corridors that change shape as I walk. Some are wide as cathedral halls, others as narrow as throat tunnels. The air is breathable, but carries a taste I can't name, like old stone, mixed with electricity and winter wind. Eventually, I'm brought into a chamber that feels less like a room and more like a memory. The Grand Hall, a circular arena kilometers wide. Floating platforms orbit a central dais. Each platform hosts a representative species, some in physical form, others in constructs, some in clouds of light or magnetic lattice. And then there's me. My platform is small, unadorned, a reminder. I step forward, and silence follows me. The central figure, an obsidian-armored being 15 feet tall with wings of starlight, raises a hand. The human arrives. The convocation begins. Let judgment proceed. My mouth is dry. My pulse is hammering. But I speak. My name is Rian Cade. I come on behalf of Earth. I come to speak, not to plead. I come not because we are perfect, but because we know we are not. I let that hang. No sound. Then a new voice booms across the chamber, cold and ancient. And why should we allow the architects of ruin to join our harmony? The Karate speaker. I meet its gaze, even though its face is a featureless obsidian disk. Because you don't fear chaos, you fear choice. And humanity is the embodiment of it. A murmur, telepathic, sonic, dimensional, ripples across the chamber. The convocation has begun, and I just threw the first stone. The Grand Hall is nothing like any government chamber I've ever seen on Earth. No desks, no flags, no chairs. It's a cosmic amphitheater where colossal platforms float like islands in an endless void. Each platform is a realm unto itself, glowing, humming, alive with alien presence. I stand on my own small platform, bare, glassy, edged with a faint pulse of blue light. It's a tiny stage compared to the others, but the message is clear. Humanity is the newest, youngest, smallest player in a game played by titans. The moment I stepped in, the air changed. It was heavier, thicker, charged with millennia of judgment. I felt it pressing down like gravity on my chest. I wasn't just in a room with these beings. I was in their history, their legacy, their verdict. First impressions. The council is older than stars. Some members shimmer with energy fields that bend light. Others look like living mountains covered in translucent crystal. They call themselves the Titans, but none of them share our size or form. It's almost laughable how human-centric we are when compared to these ancient, godlike creatures. I try to study them discreetly, but it's impossible not to feel their eyes. Hundreds of eyes, all on me. There's the Kari speaker, whose voice I heard in the hall. A tall, black-armored entity with a smooth obsidian face that reflects your fears back at you. It radiates cold disdain. Across the circle, a figure floats that looks like a shifting storm, lightning arcing inside its transparent body, the Zorlith. They hum with latent energy, dangerous and unpredictable. Then there's the whole Prime Architect, the oldest and most silent member. It sits on a throne made of woven starlight and metal, its shape impossible to define. The Prime Architect has not spoken in over 3,000 years. Its silence carries weight like 1,000 thunderclaps. The opening ritual. The convocation opens with a ritual I won't forget. The Grand Hall dims. The floating platforms pulse in sync with an otherworldly rhythm that vibrates through my bones. The Karate speaker steps forward. Humanity, it says, voice resonant like a dark chime, you stand accused by the histories of 1,000 worlds. Firebrands of your species have raised forests, annihilated siblings, and sung songs of blood. Why should we not extinguish your flame before it spreads? A chill runs through me. That question isn't just accusation, it's a death sentence. I raise my hand, voice steady despite the cold fist around my heart. Because fire can create as much as it destroys. You judge us by our worst moments, ignoring the beauty and the courage that fire enables. I see a ripple of surprise, probably amusement, among the council. They've heard thousands of pleas, but I sense something different in this one. Maybe it's my tone or the raw honesty behind it. The debate begins. The debate is brutal. The council members take turns laying out their cases. The Karate are the fiercest opponents. Their arguments focus on humanity's history of violence, war crimes, environmental destruction, and what they call reckless expansion. They see us as a contagion, a dangerous virus that could upset the delicate balance of galactic peace. The Zorlith are unpredictable, sometimes siding with the Karate, sometimes siding with me. They are fascinated by our unpredictability, but question whether that unpredictability is genius or madness. The Lithari, a race of crystalline beings with voices like wind chimes, advocate for cautious inclusion. They argue that every species has the potential to evolve beyond its beginnings, citing examples of other civilizations once violent but now peaceful. The Ekith, a race of tentacled scholars, remain neutral, observing but not committing. My role in the debate. I'm not just an observer. I'm a participant. The council allows me to speak, to defend humanity, to answer questions. The language is complex. Telepathic images, harmonic vibrations, and verbal speech all combined. I struggle to keep pace. One question cuts deep. How do you reconcile your species' propensity for destruction with your claims of progress? I take a deep breath, choosing my words carefully. Our history is a tapestry of both darkness and light. Yes, we've destroyed much, but we've also rebuilt. We've created art, music, medicine, and technology that has saved billions of lives. We have fallen into chaos, but we have also risen above it. I pause, letting the weight of my words sink in. Fire does not define us. How we wield it does. The burden of representation. This debate isn't just about logic or facts. It's about trust. They don't know us. They fear us. They see us as children playing with matches near a powder keg. I carry the burden of an entire species, knowing that failure means more than personal disgrace. It means extinction. At one point, the Karate speaker leans forward, voice dripping with disdain. You are but animals with fire. What makes you think you deserve to be part of this accord? I don't flinch. Because animals can become architects. Because fire can forge, not just burn. Because we have something no other species here has. Resilience born from chaos. We don't just survive. We adapt. We grow. We learn. There's silence again. Then a faint murmur, like the council reconsidering. Unexpected allies. During breaks, I find allies in unexpected places. Zainara, the weaver, approaches me. She's unlike anyone else in the hall. Her body is a shifting pattern of threads and light, and her voice is a soothing hum in my mind. You have strength, she tells me, but they fear your fire because they do not understand it. I will help you weave your words into their hearts. Her presence is comforting in this alien realm. She teaches me how to read the subtle signals, the flicker of wings, the change in light frequency, the pulse of thoughts. She warns me, too. The council is divided. The vote may already be fixed against us. They want to see us fail. A glimpse of hope. Despite the harshness, I find moments of hope. The Lidhari come to me privately, admiring our capacity for change. They share stories of their own violent pasts, how their species was once as volatile as ours, and how they found peace through understanding and compromise. Their stories remind me why I was chosen, not just to defend humanity, but to show what we could become. The weight of history. The Council displays holographic archives of human history. Wars, genocides, environmental collapse, our worst moments in brutal detail. I face them without flinching. Yes, these moments exist, I say, but so do moments of brilliance. First steps on the moon, the fall of apartheid, cures for disease, the songs sung in refugee camps. We are not defined by our failures, but by our fight to rise above them. It's not enough for some. The Karate and their allies scoff, calling it sentimentality, but others hesitate. Night on Oryx Primaris. When the day's session ends, I retreat to my quarters, a sleek pod with views of the gas giant below. I lie back, exhausted, wondering if I'm ready for what's coming next. A small, almost imperceptible knock interrupts my thoughts. Zainara slips in, radiant threads glowing softly. Tomorrow is the test of fire, she says. You will face trials that challenge your very soul. Remember, fire can warm or it can burn. Choose how you wield it. Her words echo in the stillness as the grand hall's lights dim. Closing thoughts. As I close my eyes, I realize this is more than a diplomatic hearing. It's a crucible. Humanity's fate doesn't rest on weapons or armies, but on words and will. I'm just one man, but I carry the fire of billions. And this Council of Titans? They will learn that fire is not just destruction. It is creation. The morning light filtering through my quarters is not sunlight, but a gentle swirl of gases from the distant gas giant Oryx Primaris below. The view is beautiful, otherworldly, an eternal reminder that I am no longer on Earth. I am a human ambassador, standing before the oldest, most powerful entities in the galaxy. The Council of Titans has summoned me to face the test of fire, a trial I have only heard about in whispered rumors from previous, failed representatives of less resilient species. The test of fire is a rite of passage, a series of trials designed not to evaluate strength or technology, but the very essence of what it means to be a species, our values, our spirit, our capacity for change. Preparing for the test, Zainara, the weaver, visits me early. Her glowing threads shimmer with urgency. You will face the test soon, she says. It is more than a test of mind or body. It probes your soul. You must show the Council that humanity's fire is tempered by wisdom and compassion. I nod, grateful for her guidance, but the weight in my chest feels heavier than ever. How do I prepare? I ask. There is no preparation for the test. She replies with a faint smile. Only resolve. Entering the trial chamber. When the time comes, I am led to a separate chamber within the vast grand hall. The trial chamber is a sphere of shifting colors and lights, stretching infinitely in all directions. It is both disorienting and mesmerizing. A voice, calm and unyielding, speaks directly into my mind. Humanity, your fire has forged empires and annihilated worlds. Show us what you are beneath the flames. The chamber shifts instantly. I am no longer alone. Around me, images and sensations flood in, a torrent of memories, emotions, and challenges designed to push me to the brink. Trial 1. The weight of history. The first challenge drags me deep into humanity's past. I relive the darkest moments, the wars, the genocides, the environmental devastations. It is overwhelming. Faces of victims, screams echoing in the void, entire cities reduced to ash. I feel the sting of tears, the sharp ache of guilt. But the test is not simply to witness. It is to endure, to acknowledge the scars without surrendering to despair. I speak aloud, as if to the Council watching unseen. We have made terrible mistakes. We have hurt ourselves and others. But from the ashes, we have rebuilt. Our failures are the crucible of our progress. The chamber responds, morphing the images into scenes of hope. Children holding hands across borders, scientists racing against disease, artists creating beauty amid chaos. Trial 2. The burden of choice. The next trial tests our choices. The moments where humanity could have chosen destruction or redemption. I am shown scenarios where civilizations fell because of pride, fear, or hatred. But then I see humans risking their lives to save strangers, standing against oppression, building bridges between enemies. One image stays with me, a young woman standing in a protest, her face bruised but unbowed, holding a sign that reads, Justice is the flame that lights our path. I speak again. We are not perfect, but we are willing to change. We fight for justice because we know the cost of its absence. The chamber hums, acknowledging my words. Trial 3. The fire within. The most personal trial is the hardest. I am forced to confront my own doubts and fears. Am I worthy of carrying humanity's fire? Am I strong enough to face this council, this crucible? Visions of failure haunt me. The possibility that all I say and do will be rejected, that humanity will be cast out or destroyed. I see my family, my home on Earth, the faces of those I love, and the millions who depend on me. I find strength in their hope. I say, I am not alone. We are many. Our fire is shared, passed from one to another. It is the spark that refuses to die. The chamber glows warmly, a test beyond words. Suddenly, the chamber shifts again. I find myself standing on a barren world, harsh winds whipping dust around me. There is no light except for a faint flicker of fire in my hand. A voice echoes, "Show us the fire that cannot be snuffed out, the fire that burns not in flame, but in spirit." I lift the fire higher. Images of human kindness flash, a doctor treating patients in war zones, an engineer building shelters after disasters, volunteers feeding the hungry. The fire grows brighter. The council watches. Though I cannot see the council, I feel their presence keenly. The energy in the chamber fluctuates, mirroring their shifting sentiments. I realize the test is not only about me, it's about humanity as a whole. If I fail, it's not just my future at stake, but the future of every person on Earth. A moment of revelation. In the final moments, the chamber fades to silence. A clear, resonant voice fills the void. Humanity, you have shown fire tempered by heart. You carry the potential for destruction and for creation. The choice is yours to wield. The test of fire ends. Aftermath. I return to my platform in the grand hall, exhausted but alive with a new sense of purpose. Zainara meets me with a smile. "You did well," she says. "Few have passed the test with such clarity." But the council remains silent. Their deliberation will last. I close my eyes, knowing that the hardest battles are still ahead, battles not fought with weapons, but with words, trust, and hope. Reflection. As I lie awake that night, I reflect on what I have learned. The test of fire was not just about proving humanity's worth. It was about understanding ourselves, our flaws, our strengths, our capacity to rise from the ashes. I am no longer just a man. I am a symbol, and the fire I carry will light the way. The weight of the test of fire still lingers in my bones as I step back onto the platform in the grand hall. Exhaustion drapes over me like a heavy cloak, but there's no time to rest. The Council of Titans waits, silent, inscrutable, judging not just my performance, but humanity's very place in the cosmic order. This chapter of my journey is the crucible of diplomacy. The test was a trial of spirit. Now comes the dance of words, the intricate, perilous art of negotiation. Here, the fire of humanity must be wielded with finesse, not fury. It must be convincing enough to bridge chasms that have stretched across millennia and light years. The council reconvenes. The council members reappear, floating silently back to their platforms. Their faces, or what passes for faces, are unreadable. Some shimmer with cold light. Others, like the whole prime architect, remain motionless, an enigma wrapped in starlight. The Karate speaker, the harshest voice against humanity, narrows their obsidian eyes and begins, "You have passed the test, human. But tests do not make treaties. Your species' history still threatens the balance of the accord." Their words cut like a blade, but I'm ready. I stand taller, voice calm and deliberate. Passing the test means more than survival. It means recognition of who we are and who we can become. We seek not to threaten the accord, but to strengthen it. The stakes of the accord. The Galactic Accord is the invisible web that holds together the delicate balance between species. It's a fragile peace maintained by diplomacy, trade, and mutual respect, often threatened by suspicion, old grudges, and the kind of misunderstandings that erupt into war. I am here to prove that humanity can join this web, not unravel it. The Karati see us as reckless firebrands. Others see us as hopeful newcomers who bring new perspectives. But trust is fragile. The Council demands assurances. How do we guarantee we will not repeat the mistakes of the past? How do we ensure our rapid technological advances don't outpace our ethical growth? Building bridges, not walls. I remember something my grandfather once told me. Speak softly, carry fire. But never let that fire burn those you must trust. I start with openness. We offer transparency, I say. Our governments will share our scientific progress, our cultural values, and our systems of governance. We invite scrutiny because we know the only way to grow is through accountability. There's murmuring from the Lithari. Their crystalline forms glow brighter, a sign of approval. The language of diplomacy. Words here are not just spoken, they resonate. Every phrase carries weight, amplified by telepathic echoes and subtle energy flows. I must choose my words with care, balancing humility with confidence. I use stories, the oldest form of communication, to connect with them. I tell you of Earth's darkest hours and brightest days, I say, because stories carry lessons. In our stories, fire is both destroyer and creator. It is the eternal symbol of renewal. The Zorlith, ever unpredictable, flicker with interest, facing skepticism, but not all are convinced. The Karate speaker leans forward, voice sharp. Words are easy. Actions define a species. Show us your commitment to peace. I expected this challenge. I respond with what humanity has built in recent decades: international coalitions for peacekeeping, treaties on climate, the establishment of global humanitarian organizations. We have begun, I say, but we know this journey is long. We will prove ourselves through deeds, not promises. A proposal for cooperation. Then I make my move. A proposal that surprises even me. We invite the Council to establish a joint observatory on Earth, I say. A center for knowledge sharing, where humans and other species can study the cosmos together, fostering mutual understanding and scientific collaboration. This idea resonates. The concept of shared knowledge is sacred among the Titans. Zainara smiles gently from the edge of the hall, her shimmering threads weaving subtle patterns of support. Negotiations tighten. The discussions stretch on for hours, days, it feels like. The Council's members debate among themselves. Some see humanity as a beacon of hope, others as a potential threat. I engage with individuals, not just the collective. With the Lithari, I discuss ethics and governance. With the Ekith, I explore scientific exchange. With the Zorolith, I tread carefully, aware of their volatile nature but sensing their curiosity. Diplomacy is a dance. One misstep could unravel everything. Moments of vulnerability. In a rare moment alone, Zainara shares a warning. Not all Titans want you here, she says softly. Some fear change more than conflict. Her words echo the ancient struggles I've read about. Empires clinging to power, afraid of the unknown. I realize the path forward will be riddled with both overt challenges and subtle sabotage. The power of empathy. In one exchange, I appeal not to reason, but to empathy. I tell the story of a young girl from a war-torn region on Earth who, despite her hardships, dreams of a future where children of all races and species can play under the same sky. Her dream is small, but it carries the weight of countless hopes. I see shifts in the Council's energy, a softening. The final vote. At last, the Council moves to vote. The silence is oppressive. The room seems to hold its breath. I stand on my platform, feeling the eyes of billions on me. The votes tally. Some Titan members vote to accept humanity into the Accord. Others abstain. A few still oppose. But the majority vote passes. A new chapter begins. The chair of the Council, an immense being woven from light and shadow, declares, "Humanity shall join the Galactic Accord, not as supplicants, but as partners. May your fire illuminate the stars, and your spirit guide your path." The words echo through me like a thunderclap. I have done it. We have done it. Aftermath and reflection. As the Council disperses, I stand alone for a moment, overwhelmed but resolute. This victory is just the beginning. Trust must be earned every day. I look back toward Earth, distant but no longer unreachable. Our place among the stars is no longer a dream, but a responsibility. Closing thoughts. The fires of diplomacy have been lit. Now, it is up to us, humanity, to carry that fire wisely, not just to survive among the Titans, but to thrive, to inspire, and to remind the galaxy what it means to be human. The Council's decision echoes in my mind like a persistent drumbeat. Humanity has been accepted into the Galactic Accord. It is a monumental victory, a milestone for our species. Yet, I know this is no finish line. It's the beginning of a complex journey toward building real alliances among the stars. In the weeks that follow, I'm thrust into a whirlwind of activity. My mission is no longer just about proving humanity's worth through trials or speeches. Now, I must forge alliances, fragile, tentative, yet vital bonds between species whose histories, cultures, and ambitions are often at odds. The first step, understanding. My first priority is to understand the complex web of relationships within the Accord. Each species brings a unique worldview shaped by millennia of experience. I start with the Lithari. They are crystalline beings, their translucent forms pulsing with an inner light. They communicate not just with words, but through patterns of light and subtle vibrations. To them, trust is built on shared knowledge and mutual respect for history. Meeting with Lithari envoy Skrill, I quickly learned their priority: preservation of knowledge and stability. They see the universe as a vast library where every action and event is recorded, and any disturbance risks unraveling the fragile balance. I listen carefully. What do you see as humanity's greatest threat to the Accord? I ask. Skrill's light pulses thoughtfully. Your species' fire, not your technology, but your passions, your volatility. You change rapidly, sometimes unpredictably. It unsettles those who cherish order. Their words sting, but they ring true. Humanity's rapid development and history of conflict make us an unpredictable element in the Accord's delicate equilibrium. Meeting the Zorolith. Next, I meet the Zorolith, fabled as the wild cards of the Accord. Their shifting forms flicker like embers, sometimes beautiful and mesmerizing, sometimes sharp and intimidating. Zorolith politics are labyrinthine, and their trust must be earned through actions more than words. Their leader, Veshkala, meets me with an intensity that feels like standing before a living flame. You humans have survived the test of fire, but fire can consume as easily as it illuminates. Veshkala warns. Show us your flame is one of creation, not destruction. I reply, we carry the scars of destruction, but also the wisdom of rebirth. We seek to build, to share, and to learn. Our conversation is tense but respectful. I realize that with the Zorolith, diplomacy must be both art and gamble, a fragile opportunity. With these encounters, I grasp a vital truth. The Galactic Accord is a web of competing interests. There is no single path to unity, only a tapestry woven from many threads. Then comes a message from the Ekith, the ancient scientists of the Accord. They invite me to join a joint scientific council on Oryx Primaris. The Ekith believe that shared scientific endeavors can serve as a bridge between cultures. I accept eagerly. Science is humanity's universal language, a common ground where suspicion can give way to collaboration. The Joint Scientific Council. The council convenes in a sprawling complex carved into Oryx Primaris's rocky surface. Delegates from dozens of species gather, each presenting their latest discoveries, theories, and technologies. At first, the atmosphere is cool and formal, but I sense the undercurrent of curiosity and even hope. I share a human breakthrough, a new method for sustainable energy harvesting, inspired by Earth's oceans. The Ekith nod appreciatively, and some species express interest in adapting the technology. This exchange sparks a series of conversations that extend beyond the council chambers, informal discussions in corridors, over shared meals, even in quiet gardens under alien stars. The embers of alliance begin to glow, the challenge of trust. Yet, trust remains elusive. In one tense moment, a rival delegate from the Karate questions the integrity of the human data I presented. It is convenient that your discovery arrives just as tensions rise elsewhere, the Karate accuses. How do we know this is not a stratagem? I meet their gaze firmly. Our work is open for verification, I say. Transparency is our pledge. The room holds its breath. The accusation is a reminder. Diplomacy is fraught with suspicion, and every gesture is scrutinized. A breakthrough in understanding. Outside the formal talks, I take time to learn about the cultures behind the species. With the Lithari, I observe their ritual of light weaving, a meditation that symbolizes their interconnectedness. With the Zorolith, I attend a festival of flames, a chaotic, vibrant celebration of life and transformation. These experiences deepen my respect and help me see beyond politics to the living souls behind the alien exteriors. Seeds of mutual respect. One evening, Veshkala approaches me quietly. I underestimated your species, she admits. Your fire does warm the coldest of nights. I smile, sensing a breakthrough. We agree to a small joint project, a cultural exchange program between humans and Zorolith, designed to foster empathy and reduce misunderstandings. It's a small step, but a critical one, the threat on the horizon. Just as I begin to believe that true alliance is possible, I receive troubling intelligence. A rogue faction, calling themselves the Shard Rebellion, has launched attacks on border colonies. They reject the Accord's authority and view humanity's acceptance as a dangerous shift in power. The rebellion threatens to destabilize everything we have worked for. Rallying the allies, I immediately call a meeting of the species most affected by the rebellion. It is the first test of the alliances I've begun to forge. I speak plainly. This rebellion threatens all our futures. If we do not stand together, the fires of discord will consume us. The delegates exchange wary glances, but nod in agreement. Plans are made for coordinated defense and intelligence sharing. Reflections on fire and unity. That night, as I look out over the gas giant below, I feel the weight of responsibility anew. The embers of alliance burn bright, but they are fragile. They require constant tending, careful words, honest actions, and sometimes sacrifices. I think back to Earth's own history, how fragile alliances once were, yet how they grew stronger through shared struggles. A new path forward. The path ahead is uncertain and perilous, but I believe in humanity's fire, not just as a force of power, but as a beacon of hope and resilience. Together with the Titans, we will face the coming storm. Together, we will forge a future where the fire within us lights the way for all. The alliance we forged in Oryx Primaris burned bright, yet shadows lurked just beyond the glow, threatening to consume all we had built. No sooner had the embers of cooperation begun to warm the cold corridors of the Galactic Accord than I was confronted with the darker realities beneath its gleaming surface. The Shard Rebellion was more than a mere band of rogue insurgents. It was a symptom of a fractured galaxy where old wounds festered beneath polished diplomacy. The true test of humanity's place among the Titans was not just in joining their ranks, but in navigating the shadows they could not, or would not, confront. The aftermath of the alliance. Returning from Oryx Primaris, I carried both hope and heavy burdens. The cultural exchange program with the Zorolith was underway, and preliminary scientific collaborations were promising. Yet, every small victory seemed offset by growing unrest on the fringes of the Accord. The Shard Rebellion's attacks grew bolder. Border colonies once quiet under the Accord's protection now smoldered in the aftermath of brutal raids. Refugees streamed inward, their stories echoing across the council chambers, tales of merciless destruction and betrayal. The Accord's response was cautious. The Council preached unity and patience, wary of escalating violence. But patience was a luxury few on the front lines could afford. A call to action. I convened a coalition of human and Titan diplomats and military advisors. We gathered in a secure orbital station orbiting Vesta Prime, neutral ground surrounded by the silent void. We can no longer stand by, I said. The rebellion threatens not only the border, but the entire structure of the Accord. We must act decisively. Some in the room nodded. Others, particularly the Lithari representatives, urged caution. The Shard Rebellion is a symptom of deeper unrest. Lithari envoy Skrill warned. We must address root causes or risk endless cycles of conflict. I understood their wisdom, but also felt the urgency of defense. Then we do both, I responded. Strengthen defenses, while initiating dialogue to address grievances. The hunt for the Shard Rebellion. Our intelligence teams began to map the Shard Rebellion's movements. The rebels operated with guerrilla tactics, striking supply lines, sabotaging communications, then disappearing into asteroid fields or uncharted systems. Tracking them was like chasing shadows. I volunteered to lead a diplomatic team to the nearest Shard-controlled sector, hoping to open channels for negotiation. The risk was immense. The rebels viewed any Accord official as an enemy, especially one representing humanity, their latest symbol of galactic change. Into the rebel zone. Our ship slipped through the asteroid belt surrounding the Shard sector, sensors strained against the debris and electronic interference. I sat with my team, scientists, diplomats, and former military officers, each aware of the delicate balance we must maintain. On arrival, we sent an encrypted message offering parley. Days passed with no reply. Tension grew palpable. Unexpected contact. Then, a transmission broke through, a distorted, cryptic message from the rebel leader, a figure known only as Kara Shard. She demanded proof of sincerity before any dialogue could begin. The rebels had been burned too many times by false promises. I proposed a radical gesture, a public broadcast from our ship, sharing human histories of hardship, reconciliation, and hope, stories that might pierce the rebels' hardened skepticism. The broadcast was transmitted across the rebel sector. The power of story. Weeks later, an emissary arrived, a young woman, fierce but wary, bearing the rebel insignia. She introduced herself as Lyra, Kara Shard's envoy. Our first meetings were guarded, filled with suspicion and terse exchanges. Yet, through shared stories and candid dialogue, barriers began to fall. Lyra revealed the rebels' grievances: neglect by the Accord, economic hardship, cultural erasure, and fear of losing identity in the expanding galactic order. Negotiating identity and autonomy. The Shard Rebellion was not just a military threat, it was a crisis of identity. They feared assimilation and loss of their distinct culture and autonomy. I listened, acknowledging the validity of their fears. "We do not seek to erase who you are," I assured Lyra. "The Accord is stronger because of its diversity. We must find ways to protect cultural heritage, not suppress it." Together, we drafted proposals for autonomous zones within the Accord, regions where local governance and traditions could flourish under the broader peace framework. The Council's reluctance. Back at the Council, I faced resistance. Many members feared that granting autonomy would encourage further rebellions. The Shard Rebellion's ideas threatened the unity of the Accord, the Karate speaker argued. I countered, "Unity without respect for diversity is fragile. We must evolve beyond domination to partnership." The debate was fierce and exhausting, but slowly, minds began to open. A fragile ceasefire. Negotiations with the Shard faction led to a fragile ceasefire. It was not peace, but a pause, a moment to build trust and explore the potential of coexistence. Lyra remained aboard our ship as a liaison, a symbol of hope and challenge. Personal reflection. In quiet moments, I reflected on humanity's own history, how we too struggled with identity, autonomy, and unity. Our journey was far from over, but I felt a growing conviction that our fire, our spirit, was more than survival. It was the courage to face shadows and transform them. Preparing for the future. The shadows over the Accord would not disappear overnight, but with alliances strengthened, dialogues opened, and a commitment to empathy, the path ahead, though fraught, held promise. I stood ready to lead humanity through the darkness, carrying our fire not as a weapon, but as a beacon. Trust, that elusive, fragile thread that binds allies, turns enemies into partners, and transforms fleeting peace into lasting harmony. In the Galactic Accord, trust was currency more valuable than any technology, more vital than fleets of starships. Yet, it was also the rarest commodity, especially for a new species like humanity. As I looked out from the observation deck of the flagship Elysium, the stars stretching endlessly beyond, I felt the weight of that truth more acutely than ever. The Shard Rebellion ceasefire was holding, for now, but the fragile peace was a candle flickering in a tempest. One misstep could snuff it out. This chapter of our journey demanded a different kind of battle, fought not with weapons, but with patience, empathy, and relentless honesty. The challenge of rebuilding trust. Our mission to build trust with the Shard Rebellion faction and across the Accord was complicated by decades, centuries of distrust among member species. Historical grievances, betrayals layered deep in cultural memory made diplomacy a minefield. But I had learned that trust was not won by words alone. It demanded action, consistency, and often sacrifice. We began by opening up our human colonies along the border to joint patrols with representatives from the Shard faction and other Accord members sympathetic to their cause. This was unprecedented. I was there the day the first mixed patrol launched, walking among uncertainty. The patrol team was a mix: humans, Shard rebels, Lithari observers, and a few Zorolith veterans who had earned a grudging respect through previous negotiations. We traveled the rugged terrain of the border colony Vesta 9, a harsh, wind-battered world where resources were scarce and hope even scarcer. The Shard rebels walked alongside us, weapons holstered but eyes alert. I could see the tension. Old suspicions flared beneath their calm exterior. For them, every gesture was a test. When one rebel, a young scout named Jara, caught a glimpse of a human child playing near a patrol outpost, her face softened. I saw a spark of something unexpected: hope, the power of small gestures. In moments like these, trust began to grow not through grand declarations, but in small, human moments. We shared meals, stories, and songs around campfires beneath alien stars. Jara told me of her childhood on a mining colony shattered by Accord neglect. I shared tales of Earth's own struggles with poverty and war, and how people found light in the darkest times. Those stories were more than words. They were bridges, human fire reaching across the void. The Council's test. Despite these hopeful signs, not all in the Accord were convinced. At a tense Council session, I was called to answer hard questions. The Shard faction cannot be trusted, Karate Speaker Ren insisted. Their actions have brought only chaos. Why should we gamble the Accord's security on fragile goodwill? I responded firmly, because security built on fear and suppression is temporary. Our strength lies in unity born of respect and understanding. The ceasefire is a chance, not a weakness. I could see some delegates nodding, others glaring. The diplomatic crucible. The real test came when we invited the Shard delegation to the Accord's capital world, Solaria Prime, for formal peace talks. It was the first time representatives from the rebellion had stepped into the heart of the Accord. The atmosphere was electric, an uneasy mix of hope, skepticism, and hidden fears. I was assigned to be the lead human liaison, a role that felt equal parts honor and burden. Facing the past, the opening sessions dredged up painful memories and raw emotions. Shard leaders recounted betrayals and broken promises. Accord representatives countered with the challenges of governing a vast, diverse galaxy. At one point, a Shard elder accused humanity of being the fire that consumed their worlds. I met her gaze steadily. Humanity's fire has burned and rebuilt. We do not seek to consume, but to illuminate. We want to stand with you, not over you. It was a turning point, building new foundations. Over weeks, the negotiations slowly progressed from confrontation to conversation, from accusations to understanding. We proposed a framework for shared governance in disputed territories, resource sharing agreements, and cultural preservation programs. Shard leaders proposed autonomy zones with guaranteed protections and Accord representation. We agreed to establish a joint peacekeeping force, including members from all factions. The weight of compromise. Compromise was difficult. Some humans felt the concessions were too much, fearing we weakened our position. Some Shard radicals denounced the talks as betrayal. But I reminded everyone that peace demanded sacrifice, not surrender, but thoughtful giving and receiving. A moment of crisis. Midway through the talks, a violent bombing rocked Solaria Prime's diplomatic quarter. The blast targeted a Shard delegation building, killing several. The incident threatened to unravel everything. Rallying for peace. I immediately called for calm and unity. In an emergency session, I addressed the council and media. This attack is not the voice of the Shard faction, but the voice of those who fear peace. We must not let violence destroy our progress. I personally reached out to Shard leaders, pledging support and solidarity. Together, we vowed to find the perpetrators and bring them to justice. The turning point. Investigations revealed that extremist factions from outside the Accord orchestrated the bombing, aiming to derail peace. The Joint Peacekeeping Force launched coordinated operations, dismantling cells responsible. The attack galvanized the Accord's members, reminding us all of the stakes. Seeds of genuine trust. Months passed. Trust grew not only through words, but shared actions. Joint patrols reduced violence along borders. Cultural exchanges flourished, with humans and Shard rebels learning from each other's arts, traditions, and histories. I accompanied a Shard delegation to a human colony festival, where we celebrated together beneath the stars. Personal reflections. One night, I sat with Lyra, the Shard envoy, under Solaria Prime's twin moons. I never believed this peace was possible, she said softly. Neither did I admitted. But sometimes, fire must burn away the old to make room for the new. She smiled faintly. You're humanity's fire. It is a strange thing. Destructive and creative, terrifying and hopeful. Maybe that is why we need you. The path ahead. The crucible of trust was far from over. Old wounds still smoldered. New challenges loomed on distant horizons. But for the first time, I felt that humanity was not just a guest in the Galactic Accord. We were becoming a vital thread in its tapestry. We carried fire, yes, but now we also carried hope. The fragile peace we had painstakingly built with the Shard faction and the broader Galactic Accord was like walking a tightrope stretched over a yawning chasm. One false move, one spark, could send us plummeting back into chaos. And as much as I hoped we had turned a corner, the echoes of war would not be silenced so easily. Peace was not merely the absence of violence. It was the ongoing struggle to mend broken bonds, to confront the ghosts of past conflicts, and to prepare for threats that lurked in the dark corners of the galaxy. Uneasy calm. The days following the bombing on Solaria Prime felt like a brief, fragile calm before the storm. Our joint peacekeeping forces were vigilant, and the accords held, but the tension was palpable. It was as if the entire galaxy was holding its breath. I spent long hours in the council chambers, poring over reports and intelligence briefs. The security situation along the borders was volatile. Though the Shard extremists who orchestrated the bombing had been dismantled, their sympathizers remained, lurking in the shadows. The haunting past. The Shard faction's history was etched in blood and fire. Once, their worlds had been prosperous, centers of trade and culture, but decades of neglect, oppression, and violent suppression by previous regimes had left deep scars. I often found myself haunted by the stories I'd heard during our talks. The orphaned children, the razed villages, the betrayals by those who once promised protection. This history was not just background noise. It shaped the fears, the rage, and the stubborn resolve of the Shard rebels. And it shaped the mistrust many Accord members still harbored toward them. A new threat emerges. Just as we began to stabilize, an unexpected intelligence report arrived. A new threat was rising in the galactic fringe, a faction calling themselves the Obsidian Dawn. Unlike the Shard rebels, who sought recognition and autonomy, the Obsidian Dawn was bent on conquest. They rejected the Accord entirely, preaching a ruthless doctrine of strength and domination. Their advance was swift, sweeping through unprotected systems with brutal efficiency. A call for unity. The Obsidian Dawn's emergence was a test unlike any we had faced. Their aggression threatened not just border colonies, but the core principles of the Accord. In response, I called for an emergency summit on the orbital station Helios Nexus, a neutral ground known for its imposing space elevators and panoramic views of the starry void. Leaders from every Accord member species gathered, their faces grim. This is no longer a Shard problem. I addressed the assembly. It is a threat to all of us. The struggle to unite. But unity was hard to achieve. Old grudges and political rivalries surfaced amid the crisis. The Kara-E faction, proud and fiercely independent, pushed for a military response focused on border defense. The Lithari urged restraint, warning that too much force could fracture the fragile alliances we had worked so hard to build. Shard representatives demanded recognition that their people had suffered neglect under the Accord, and that any defense effort must include protections for their autonomy. Bridging the divides. My role was to broker compromise, a delicate dance of words and wills. I proposed a combined task force, military, diplomatic, and intelligence units from across the Accord, including Shard representatives. It was a bold step, signaling trust and shared responsibility. The decision was not easy, but the specter of annihilation forced cooperation. Preparing for battle. As the task force assembled, I toured the fleet's command center, a labyrinth of holodisplays, tactical maps, and buzzing consoles. The human contingent was ready, but we were just one thread in the broader tapestry. Shard pilots, once rebels, now flew alongside seasoned Accord veterans. We shared tactics, technology, and strategies, a melding of diverse strengths. The human factor. Despite the advanced technology, I knew the outcome would hinge on more than firepower. It would be shaped by the spirit, the human qualities of resilience, empathy, and ingenuity. I spent time with the pilots, soldiers, and strategists, sharing stories and listening to their hopes and fears. One young Shard pilot, Cal, confided that he still struggled to trust humans fully. "Your history is so different," he said. "How do I know this alliance won't break when it's most needed?" I answered, "Because we fight not just for ourselves, but for something bigger, our shared future." The first engagement. The Obsidian Dawn's fleet struck near the outer rim, targeting a cluster of mining colonies. Our task force scrambled to respond. The battle was fierce, a cacophony of lasers, missiles, and starship maneuvers across the void. Despite our best efforts, the Obsidian Dawn ships were fast and ruthlessly coordinated. Sacrifice and resolve. One of our human cruisers took a devastating hit, its crew fighting to stabilize the ship. I watched from the command center as crews worked tirelessly, refusing to surrender. The Shard pilots executed daring maneuvers, protecting fleeing transports and counterattacking with precision, turning the tide. After hours of intense combat, our combined forces managed to push back the Obsidian Dawn fleet. The victory was costly but vital, a testament to the power of cooperation. Celebrations were muted. The battle was only the beginning. The diplomacy of war. Even as weapons cooled, diplomacy surged forward. We used the victory to strengthen ties within the Accord, pushing for increased resource sharing and coordinated defense. Shard leaders stepped forward, offering insights into the Obsidian Dawn's tactics, knowledge gained from prior skirmishes. Reflections on humanity. As the dust settled, I reflected on humanity's role in this crucible. Our ability to unite, to forge bonds despite differences, was our greatest strength. We were not just warriors. We were diplomats, storytellers, bridge builders. Our fire burned brightest when shared. Looking forward, the Obsidian Dawn was not defeated, merely delayed. The echoes of war would continue to resonate through the galaxy. But with trust forged in the fires of conflict, we were stronger. Together, we carried the hope of a future where peace was more than a fleeting dream. The galaxy is a place of stars, but it is also a place of shadows. In those shadows lie the unseen, the whispered lies, and the silent betrayals. After the Obsidian Dawn's brutal assault, as we nursed our wounds and fortified our alliances, a more insidious threat began to reveal itself. One not of open war, but of deception and treachery. Trust, we learned, was precious but fragile, and enemies, it seemed, wore many faces. The calm before the storm. In the weeks following our first victory against the Obsidian Dawn, the Galactic Accord breathed a collective sigh of relief. Yet, beneath the surface, tension simmered. Some factions questioned humanity's growing influence, uneasy with our role as mediators and warriors alike. Old rivalries flared in private corridors, and new fissures threatened to undermine the fragile peace we had built. I felt the pressure mounting, aware that the diplomatic battlefield was just as perilous as the stars outside our ship. An unexpected message. One evening, in the privacy of my quarters aboard the Elysium, I received a coded message from an unknown source. The encryption was sophisticated, but our intelligence team quickly traced its origin to a minor outpost near the disputed zone between the Accord and the Obsidian Dawn's influence. The message was brief but chilling. Deception runs deep. Trust no one. The real enemy is within. The Web Titans. I convened an emergency meeting with my closest advisors, including Lyra, the Shard envoy who had become my trusted ally. This is more than just a warning, I said. It's a call to vigilance. Our investigation revealed a tangled web of espionage. Someone was feeding false information to key factions, undermining alliances, and sowing distrust. The accusations began. As rumors spread, fingers pointed in every direction. The Shard faction accused the Karati of sabotage. The Karati in turn suspected the Lithari. Whispers of human duplicity echoed in the halls. I found myself walking a razor's edge, trying to keep the peace while rooting out a hidden enemy. A secret meeting. One night, Lyra approached me with a proposal. There's a secret meeting scheduled on Helios Nexus, she said quietly. A gathering of unknown actors, spies, mercenaries, and rogue elements. If we want to uncover the truth, we must go there ourselves. I hesitated. The risks were immense, but there was no alternative. Into the lion's den. Disguised and under strict secrecy, Lyra and I traveled to the lower levels of Helios Nexus, a maze of shadowed corridors and neon-lit bazaars where lawlessness thrived. We slipped into the crowded chamber where the meeting was to be held, an eclectic mix of faces from across the galaxy, none of them trustworthy. The gathering. The room buzzed with tension and whispered deals. We listened carefully as plans were laid to destabilize the Accord from within, to ignite conflict between member factions, and to exploit the Obsidian Dawn's aggression for profit and power. Among the attendees, I recognized a high-ranking Accord official, someone I had trusted. The sting operation. We relayed what we heard to our security team, who prepared a sting operation. The raid was swift and chaotic. Many conspirators were captured, but others slipped away into the shadows. The betrayal cut deep, trust shattered, leaving a bitter residue. Repercussions. Back in the council chambers, accusations flew like sparks. The exposure of a mole in the highest ranks shook the Accord's foundations. I spoke candidly. Deception is a cancer, but it is not invincible. We must strengthen our bonds, not let fear divide us. Some heeded my words. Others retreated behind walls of suspicion. Healing wounds. To repair the damage, we launched a transparency initiative, open forums, shared intelligence, and joint investigations. Shard leaders, once wary, stepped forward with cooperation and new proposals for oversight. Humanity's role as honest broker was crucial. The personal toll, the stress weighed heavily on me. I felt the sting of betrayal personally, doubting even my closest allies. One night, Lyra found me staring into the void from the observation deck. "You carry too much alone," she said softly. "Sometimes," I replied, "but the fire we carry is brighter when shared." A new resolve. The shadows of deception lingered, but they no longer held us captive. We had faced the hidden enemy and survived. Our unity, forged in fire and shadow, was stronger for it. The road ahead. As the galaxy braced for the next wave of challenges, I knew the true battle was not just for survival, but for the soul of the Accord. And humanity, with its stubborn hope and fierce light, was ready to lead. The galaxy is not kind to those who seek peace. It tests our resolve, challenges our alliances, and pushes us to the brink of despair. But it is also a place of endless possibility, a forge where hope is reborn from the ashes of conflict. As I stood on the bridge of the Elysium, gazing out into the infinite expanse, I knew we were at the dawn of a new era. This was our moment to rise, a phoenix from the ashes of war, deception, and mistrust. The final confrontation. The Obsidian Dawn had regrouped faster than anyone anticipated. Intelligence showed they were amassing a fleet near the core systems, aiming to strike a decisive blow that could fracture the Galactic Accord forever. This was no longer a border skirmish or a game of diplomacy. It was a battle for the survival of everything we had fought for. Rallying the Accord, I sent out a call to every member faction. The message was clear: unite or fall divided. For once, old rivalries were set aside. The Lithari offered their energy shields. The Karati sent their legendary dreadnoughts. The Shard fighters, once insurgents, flew alongside human pilots in seamless coordination. Together, we formed a fleet unlike any the galaxy had seen, a symbol of unity forged in fire. The weight of command. Commanding this coalition was an immense burden. Every decision carried the weight of lives and futures. I spent hours in strategy meetings, debating tactics with generals and diplomats alike. The clock was ticking. One mistake could mean annihilation. The eve of battle. The night before engagement, I walked among the crew, faces lit by the glow of consoles, some tense, others quiet with determination. I spoke with Cal, the young Shard pilot I had come to respect deeply. "Do you think we can win?" he asked. "We have to," I replied, "because hope is the fire that refuses to die." The battle begins. When the Obsidian Dawn fleet appeared on our scanners, a hush fell over the bridge. The void exploded into chaos, ships weaving through laser fire, missiles streaking like deadly comets. Our combined fleet fought with fierce precision and unyielding spirit, turning the tide. For hours, the battle raged, losses mounting on both sides. Then, in a daring move, Cal led a squadron through a dangerous asteroid field to flank the enemy command ship. The strike was successful, crippling the Obsidian Dawn's command and sowing confusion in their ranks. Victory and loss. The Obsidian Dawn's fleet broke and fled. The victory was ours, but it came at a high cost. Countless lives had been lost, sacrifices that would echo in our memories forever. I stood on the bridge, feeling the weight of that victory, bittersweet, hard-earned. A new beginning. In the aftermath, the Galactic Accord held a summit unlike any before. Representatives spoke not just of treaties and alliances, but of rebuilding, forgiveness, and shared purpose. I addressed the assembly. "Today, we have shown that even in the darkest times, unity, and hope can light the way. Humanity's role. Humanity had proven its worth not just through technology or strategy, but through empathy and courage. We were the spark that ignited cooperation among diverse worlds, the voice calling for peace amid the clamor of war. The future ahead. The galaxy was far from perfect. Challenges remained, wounds needed healing, and new threats would arise. But we faced the future stronger, united by a shared commitment to peace and progress. Reflections. As I looked out into the stars, I thought of the journey, the battles, the betrayals, the friendships forged in fire. We had carried the flame through shadow and storm, proving that humanity's light was a beacon in the vast darkness. Closing words. The road ahead is uncertain, but one thing is clear. No matter what comes, we will face it together. Because to speak softly and carry fire is to believe in the power of hope and the strength of the human spirit.